Good morning. This is a lesson that I had with Chris Sandwald, a good player, plays off 3 handicap. His first swing on the left hand side of the screen here was back in January, I think it was. So this is the first time that Chris has come to see me. So if we go from the top, if we look at the initial sort of posture and setup, all the general things that we look for, alignment, setup is generally very good posture. So where we first started, if we look at Chris's takeaway here, we can see that he suffers quite a lot with what I would call a right wrist hinge, if you like. So this is where the golf club head disappears behind the hands, by the hands creating a right hinged movement rather than the club working in a upward movement by what I would call the wrist cock. So this would then result, as he swings to the sort of halfway back in his swing, the shaft would get very sort of stuck and shallow behind him. So what I generally look for here, I put a line where Chris's golf club actually is halfway sort of back in his swing, or when his left arm sits parallel to the ground, and you can see that the shaft angle here is significantly lower than the original shaft plane at address. What I personally like to see here is at least the shaft plane is either above or equal to the original plane. And what this really caused for Chris here, as a good player, he's not the guy that's going to call what we might class as an over-the-top swing. He doesn't do that. He manages to keep the club behind his body, but it was just too much behind his body. So it resulted, if we look at his TrackMan numbers, he started with a very rightward path, or the club direction, travelling very much into out. So the only shots he's going to hit there are sort of big pushes out to the right, or he did have a tendency to really sort of try and save it with his hands. So you can see as he comes in, as that club is travelling successfully from the inside, you can see the actual wrist movement he actually gets there, trying to square that club face up. And when his timing's on, obviously Chris is a good player. As a 3 handicapper, he would be great and he would hit big draws. When his timing and his sequencing is out, he would really struggle, and he'd hit sort of big blocks to the right with his longer clubs, and sort of hooks as well. So this was Chris the end of last month on the right hand side. So we'll go through this quickly. So his initial takeaway here, we can see he's decided to use the sort of hovering of the club method, which again I'm absolutely fine, but that initial takeaway now and the rightward hinge is virtually non-existent. So when he stops the club back in this position, you can see here that the head sits nicely in front of the hand, and the spine and the angle of the club face again perfectly parallel to his spine angle, or square to the swing arc. Obviously then as he takes the club back, the shaft plane now is slightly above the original shaft plane, where we can see on the screen on the left, this is where it originally was in that position. So it's significantly improved, and this really just allows him to keep the club a little bit more in front of his body at all times, which is what we're trying to do when we play golf. This will then result, or has resulted, in his swing path, where his club direction through impact is less out to the right and is a lot straighter. And this has been proved in the TrackMan numbers that we've sent to Chris, and I will try and put these up as well if I can. You can see now the club is a lot more in front of him. He's hit a real nice shot there. Now one other thing that Chris really struggles with, and again this is something now that we're moving on to the next stage of getting him better, is what's called early extension of the hips. So as the swing works down now, what should be happening is really this line that I've drawn on Chris's backside should really very much stay on that the whole way through the swing. So his backswing is pretty good. He gets a nice rotation with the hips on the way back, but what he struggles with now is rotating those hips to the left. So as he goes up to the top of the swing, what we look for is we look for a slight shift into the left side, which he gets there. Now really those hips should open up and rotate round to the left, but they don't. You can see that they really work this way. So if Chris's hips work to the right, if you like, rather than rotate towards the target, he has now some way got to get that club face back into a position. And again, you can see this is again why he's very, very sort of flicky, or a lot of forearm rotation there. What we tend to see now with better players is it's less about forearm rotation and more about rotating the body in an effort to square the club face up. So what we did, we've got him a couple of drills. He's also going to see James Thompson, who is a fantastic golf fitness expert based in Hale. Just got him doing a couple of simple drills, even with his arm, just trying to get him in a position here where we can see there now he's really rotating those hips towards the target. And again, what we look for here at impact is the shoulders will sit slightly open at target, or at impact, sorry. And this is normally on average, I would say, for a tall player about 12 degrees. So lots of improvements there for Chris. Hopefully that's been slightly informative, and anybody requiring golf lessons, you know where I am. It's at Highley Park Golf Club in Knutsford, and feel free to give me a call or check out my website, which is www.mikedonaldgolf.co.uk.